Hi, I'm Lisa Marie and welcome to my channel, Living My Best Life with Lisa Marie. Today's video is going to be an introduction to fall. I cannot wait. I'm so happy you're here. Let's get crafting. For this project, I used 2 of the Dollar Tree splatter screens and some fabric that I already had at home, and then that hula skirt again, and hot glue, and some leaves that I also got from the Dollar Tree. Once I decided which fabric I did want to use, I opened that up and I traced the circle part of the splatter screen twice so that I had one for each, and then I hot glued it around the edges to the actual splatter screen. I positioned the 2 splatter screens so they overlapped and brought the 2 handles together, and that's going to be the pumpkin stem, and then I hot glued the pieces that were touching together. In order to highlight the indentations that make it a pumpkin, I used my nautical rope and I hot glued it around all of the edges and then both of the other edges that kind of are in the middle of the pumpkin. You'll see. I'm going to wrap this same nautical rope around the 2 handles to make a pumpkin stem. And then I'm going to take some little pieces of jute twine that I just had left over from trimming something, and I'm going to create a little bit of a frayed top so it looks a little more stem-like, like a dried out stem. And then I come in with my Waverly wax paint in antique to just kind of make the stem look a little darker, and I'm going to use some of those Dollar Tree leaves, make a little leaf arrangement on the top with hot glue, and then I'm going to use my raffia, or actually hula skirt, and make a bow. Some lace laying around, so I thought I'd just use that to kind of spice it up a bit on top of the raffia, and I really liked the way it turned out. Super cute. And then I made a little hanger for it in the back with some more of the rope and little popsicle sticks. And here it is. How pretty is that? Oh my gosh, I really love it. Be sure to let me know what you think in the comments. I love that fabric so much. It just screams kind of fancy fall. I've got a wreath form from Dollar Tree. I've got some of the buffalo check mesh from Dollar Tree. I have this cute little paint set of a little Happy Harvest truck with the pumpkins and stuff in it. And then I'm using also some ties. And I don't think I got those at Dollar Tree because we had those in our toolkit. And what I'm doing is I'm taking the mesh and I'm attaching it about every 4 squares. I'm counting, making a loop, and then sticking in the tie. And then I'm pulling another 4 squares, making a loop, and sticking in the tie. And I'm going to do that all the way around the wreath. You could do this with any size wreath. You could even separate the wreath parts and do it with just one. I didn't do that. I probably should have, but I wasn't thinking of that until now. But anyway, you'll just keep going until you get all the way around. Don't worry about cutting off the ties until you're finished. And that's what I'm going to do right now, using a little cutter. And then I'm just going to go through and right at the point of where they're tightened is where I take them off. There it is. And then I'm going to go ahead and paint the little truck. I'm going to remove the base first though, because I don't need it for this. And I'm going to use a couple of paints that I already have. I'm going to use some that came with it, and I'm just going to paint it kind of any way I want. I'm going to, add a little bit of character to it. I'm going to sand off the glitter on the Happy Harvest part, and I'm just going to let you watch. I'm just going to kind of go at it and paint it. And you could do that any colors that you want. This is your truck. You get to do what you want. Now that the sign is painted, I am going to attach some twine to it, and then I used a little spare piece of wood that I had to make sure it would stay. And I'm going to also put some Mod Podge on the front to seal it, which I almost forgot to do. So then I'm going to suspend it in the back by attaching it to the wreath form. And then I'm also going to get some more twine, and I'm going to do it going up and down, because I want to make sure that it kind of floats in the middle of the wreath when you're looking at it from the front. And I'm going to use one of the little tumbling tower blocks to make sure that that one's on. It also adds a little weight, which helps it stand up better. And then I tie it all together, and that really supports it and kind of suspends it into the middle. And of course, that just wasn't enough. I felt like it needed more. So I got out some of my buffalo check ribbon, and I decided to crisscross it behind the twine so that you would see it from the front with a little bit of twine over it. And I really love the way that turned out. And I just hot glued it. And you'd think I'd be done at that point, but no, I still thought it needed more. So I got my buffalo check ribbon out again, and I decided to kind of lay it over every 3 of the 4 square loops. So then I hot glued it against the wreath form and then made a loop over the other loop, and as you can see, going all the way around. I decided it needed just one more thing. So I got out my nautical rope and I made a bow, and I put a little teeny piece of the buffalo check ribbon, wrapped it around the center of the bow, and then I kind of frayed the edges a little, added a little hot glue so that maybe it wouldn't fall apart, and I just went ahead and hot glued that to the top center. And now I'm absolutely in love with this wreath. Oh my gosh, it is so cute. I don't think I've ever seen one quite like it, and I'm glad that I kept adding things because I really think it turned out great. I am so in love with this wreath. Oh my gosh, I love everything about it. Oh my gosh, it was so fun to paint, so inexpensive. I mean, this thing probably cost $5, maybe $6 at the most, and you know how expensive wreaths are. And I think anyone could do this. You just have to, you know, either follow the instructions or add your own creativity, whatever you think. I just love it. And then I had purchased a really large sheet of MDF because I was making a desk for crafting, and I had extra pieces, so while I was at Lowe's I had them cut the extra pieces that were left into like porch sign shapes. So I ended up with 3 of those, and right now I'm going to show you one side of what's going to be a 2-sided porch sign. The first thing I did was I painted it with the Kills white paint. It's actually their primer, and that's what I used for the base. Most of this DIY is going to be shown in pictures because it was really hard to film myself doing it. This side of the sign is going to be for fall, so I freehanded some pumpkins and then shaded them in to give them a little more dimension. I had alphabet stencils from Walmart with really large letters. I spelled out the word welcome and put them on the far right side over the white. And then I used the antique wax from Waverly, and I distressed, or actually stained, the entire board except for the stencils and the pumpkins to make it look like wood grain. To create that wood grain look, you really need to brush all in one direction, and every so often make a little kind of spirally spot that makes it look a little bit like a wood knot. I left just the teeniest bit of white around the pumpkins. It gave them a little bit more of a 3-dimensional feel. I touched up with white wherever the antique wax bled and kind of cleaned that up so it looked really nice with the white frame around the letters. I freehanded some sunflowers with their stems coming down and kind of meeting up with one another to fill in the rest of the porch sign. Most of the paint I use for this is the Arteza acrylic paints. They are so vibrant and they cover so well. The last thing I did was seal the sign with polyacrylic coating because it is going to be outside. I think I did 3 coats. And this is how the fall side turned out. Honestly, I could not be happier with it. I absolutely love it. And I even did some texture in the little dots in the center of the sunflowers, so it looks really cool. It's hard to see on camera. But anyway, honestly, guys, this is the first time I've ever made a porch sign, and I love it. I had found this little card carrier thing at the Goodwill a while back, and I thought, what am I going to do with this thing? So I finally came up with an idea. I had these super colorful napkins that I got at the Dollar Tree, so I removed the ply, so I was left with just the very top one. And I decided I would Mod Podge it to the inside and very bottom of this card holder. And it's not easy to do, oh my gosh, because you've got to reach inside. But I cut out the pieces, measured them, and then I just got everything full of Mod Podge on the inside, and I reached my hand in there and attached it the best I could. And then after it was wet, it just kind of peeled off the top, so that wasn't too bad. And then I did add some pieces to the very bottom after I took off those little, I guess, foam cushion things. And, you know, from Hallmark, this thing would have been expensive, and I got it for, I think, $5. And there you see I've attached the napkins to the bottom, and now I'm just getting rid of all the little edges so that I can do some painting on the actual tin. I think it's like a tin or a metal that this is made out of. And I used my Arteza paints in the green and the blue, and I blended them together to create this gorgeous turquoise color that I thought was a bright color but also fit fall. Now I wanted to give it a little bit of a weathered look, so I used the Waverly white chalk paint, just dry brushed over the top, and that still wasn't enough for me, so I used some rose gold paint from Folklore to create kind of a patina look, and then I was really happy with it. Definitely looked weathered, but it also looked very expensive, very high-end, and I added some fall flowers, and you can just see the napkin that I Mod Podged in there, or decoupaged in there, peeking through. And I love this piece. Oh my gosh, it's gorgeous. The color is so vibrant, and it just brings out a really cheery kind of a fall feeling, not just a neutral color feeling, and I like that. Today we're going to make a fall sign, and the things that you will need are a board, which I picked up at Walmart. It happened to already have the whitewash on it, and the hanger, but you could take any board, you could whitewash it and add the hanger yourself. I have one of the little pumpkins that has a clip on it from the Dollar Tree. Comes in a set of 3. They either come in orange or white. I happened to cut this one in half so that it could just sit on the sign and lay flat when I attached it. I used a little bit of burlap ribbon with the wires on the 2 sides that I got at Dollar Tree, some jute twine, and my Arteza paint pens. And as I go forward in the video, you'll see that I ended up using a little bit of the metallic rose gold paint from Folklore and also some chalk paint. The first thing I'm going to do is pick out some pens that I'm going to use, and I used the bronze and the black, but I also grabbed a pencil so I could write out my words ahead of time so I wouldn't mess it up with the paint pens, which I probably would have. I decided to put Hello Fall, and I'm not a calligraphy artist, so I'm just learning how to do some kind of nice hand lettering, and I definitely want to learn more, but this is what I came up with so far. I just kind of made it a little festive. So I started with the black, and then I used my blow dryer just to dry it so I wouldn't smudge it when I brought the copper in as a highlighter. I only highlighted the areas that were like as if the light was hitting it on the right side or coming from the right side. And obviously this is sped up. I cannot do this that fast and be that careful. Now I'm going to go ahead and treat my pumpkin to a little bit of dry brushing. I'm using a white from Folklore chalk paint and then a rose gold from Folklore, also metallic paint, just to give it a little interest. This sign is for my mom, for her door, and she likes things a little blingy, so that's why I added in some of the metallic. Grabbing my burlap and measuring out how much I'm going to need and cutting off the excess, and just figuring out where I am going to position everything. And then I cut some twine so that it could go inside each of the indentations of the pumpkins just to give it a little texture. And And then I'm going to hot glue each little piece onto the pumpkin. Now I did cut individual pieces so they wouldn't all bunch up when they crossed over each other, and I thought that would make it lay more flat. Now I had excess at the top, and I decided that I was going to use that excess twine from each individual string to make the stem. So I cut a little piece of twine and tied a little knot around all of the excess stem and then trimmed the top, and that becomes my little pumpkin stem. And I just think it came out really cute. I had used the original stem for the other half of the pumpkin for a different project. I'm just making sure that the little jute was down where it needed to be flat. And then I cut a little bit of that excess burlap, and I'm making a couple of leaves. And I start off with green, and you'll see I eventually add other colors to it because I guess they really wouldn't be that bright of green if you just picked the right pumpkin. So I'm also trimming the little excess from the twine. I didn't want to burn it because I thought with the plasticky foam pumpkin that might melt it. And I'm adding a little brown to my stem. And now I'm attaching my little leaves. And I'm going to adhere the burlap that I already cut to the side, using my hot glue gun, of course. And I'm positioning the pumpkin and using the hot glue for that. And then I realized I needed another leaf, so there I go. And I'm always kind of adjusting things and changing them as I go, and that's just part of the creative process, and that's what makes it fun. And I'm thinking this just wasn't enough now, so I got a couple of my leaves off of some of the florals I got from Dollar Tree, cut off the stems so they could lay flat, hot glued them to the sign. And then I feel pretty good about that because there's enough color now, and it definitely feels like fall. And since my paint pens had dried, I felt like I needed to go back over it a little bit. And then when that was done, I Mod Podged over the top of the sign. The only thing I didn't Mod Podge was the burlap ribbon. I ended up Mod Podging everything else, and I'm using a gloss Mod Podge that I got at Dollar Tree. And I kind of like that for this sign. I like the glossy look. And when it's all dry, you'll see that it's glossy. Now you don't have to seal it with Mod Podge, but if it's going to be outside, like on somebody's front door or their porch, you know, moisture can get on it. So I just wanted to be safe and go ahead and seal it. And there it is. I'm very happy with it. I think it came out really cute. My mom is going to love it. And there it is, just styled with a couple of my other fall things. For this one, I started with the Thankful and Blessed little wooden Dollar Tree sign. I took off the metal leaf and a little bit of raffia at the top, and then I turned it over. And it does have two holes at the very top where there was a hanger. So I filled those in with hot glue and then sanded them down so there wouldn't be any bumps. And I used that same mixture of those three paints, and I painted the whole pumpkin, and then I forgot to film the part where I shaded it. So what I did is I took the Antique Waverly and a little bit of mineral and a little bit of like a plaster color, and I just started with the stem, and then I kind of created the shading and to give it more dimension. I wanted to create the sense of 3D that you could see where the pumpkin is indented, and I hope I accomplished that. And then I took two of the little green burlap leaves from the Dollar Tree package, and I glued them to the top next to the stem, and I found some succulents also from Dollar Tree. Before attaching the succulents, I decided to use the matte Mod Podge from Dollar Tree over the whole pumpkin, and then I went ahead and used hot glue to put the little succulents on. I made a hanger in the back using nautical rope and a little piece of a popsicle stick, and there it is. I honestly think this one is gorgeous. It looks so high-end. It's very neutral, boho, but it still gives you that fall feeling. And I absolutely love it. You'll have to let me know what you think. I just am happy with how it came out. In fact, I used a single piece from that wreath form, and this one's going to look very different. I took some fern that came out of a Dollar Tree pick, and I took individual leaves and I hot glued them all the way around the entire ring. And then I got some fall leaves in 3 different colors. I cut them off a garland from Dollar Tree, and I kind of placed them so that the same colors were not touching each other. And I know I could have stopped right here, but I did feel like it needed something more. So I got out my nautical rope that I got from Dollar Tree. It was either Dollar Tree or Amazon, and I decided to kind of go around in a very loose, loopy way, and I'm kind of calling it a lasso wreath. And what I did is I made sure that the rope was glued down the center of each leaf spine. I found this cute little light up wooden stand at Dollar Tree that says blessed. You can see the little light in there. And I removed the word blessed from the front, and I'll try to use the rest of that for another project. The first thing I did is I painted the sign with the home decor, the folklore color sheepskin, and then I decided to distress it with Waverly's Antique chalk paint. And it still wasn't enough, so I darkened it up a bit. And then I got this idea that maybe I need it to kind of shine a little. So I took my Arteza acrylic marker in the color bronze, and I just kind of scored it up and down. And it actually makes it look more like wood, and then I took a little black around the edges of the letters just to make them stand out more. And now put some Mod Podge on it, and I think it looks great. And I hung it with twine in the center of the wreath, and that's it. I love this one. It's just so cute, and it definitely fall. Definitely fall. Those colors are very vibrant. You know, and I've never seen a wreath quite like this, so if you have, let me know. Otherwise, maybe I came up with something. The lasso wreath, that's it. This is going to be, you know, a two-part kind of a DIY, because I've got one thankful picture that I'm making and then 3 little owl signs. So what I've done is I found a really cute thankful napkin from the Dollar Tree, and I decided to Mod Podge it onto foam board and create a frame out of the dark tumbling tower blocks that you get at Dollar Tree. So all I'm doing right now is figuring out about how large I need to make that frame, and then I'm going to start gluing the pieces together with hot glue, and I'm using my square to try to keep everything straight. I'm going to reinforce every connection of those tumbling tower blocks with some hot glue and then kind of press it down a little bit so that it seeps in. Just want to make sure that they stay together, because sometimes they do come apart if you don't use like wood glue or E6000, and I didn't do that. And now I am just cutting out my foam board. I used some scrap foam board that I had left over from another project, so I don't waste anything. And now I'm putting the Mod Podge on there so that I can attach the napkin. Now I cut the napkin, and I used another piece of the napkin so I could get that little border that's on the bottom also on the top. So you'll see I have another little piece that I cut. And so I'm going to attach that, and I just like the way that looks with the design on the top and the bottom. Kind of makes it a little more festive. And then a trick that I learned is to use some saran wrap over the top, and I'm using a brayer, but you could use your fingers. That way you don't get, you know, it doesn't get sticky and the napkin doesn't come up. Especially with napkins and tissue paper, you have to be super careful. And I did separate the plies, so you want to make sure that you're only using the top part. And now I'm sealing it with the Mod Podge on top as well. While that's drying, I'm going to figure out how I'm going to make the 3 little owl pictures that I have. So I'm measuring with my blocks to see what will be the right size, you know, the number of blocks, just like I did with the other one. And then I'm going to cut accordingly and get my foam board ready and Mod Podge it to the foam board, just like I did with the last one. And as always, if I have a little mess, I pull out my little Ladybug desktop vacuum and clean it up. That thing is so cute. I just love using it. now for the fun part. I love embellishing things, and so I'm adding some colorful leaves. I'll be adding a little bit of twine because twine looks good on just about everything, right? And some lace, so just sit back and watch and enjoy. This part is so fun. And of course, there's always like a little bit of foam board that ends up hanging over the frame. So I just got out my straight edge and my cutting board and just went ahead and trimmed that off. And what would a farmhouse project be without some wood beads? So I decided to add a wood bead in the center of each of my little twine kind of spirals there. Yeah, almost like a flower. And I painted them and distressed them and then hot glued them right into the center. I am so happy how these turned out. They are just so cute. You know, you could style these on a tiered tray. You could put them in different places. I just kind of put them together to show you, but you guys, I love them. Oh my gosh, so easy. So using the sign that Dollar Tree had with the pumpkins and the footballs, and then some tissue paper that has those little silver and white chevrons. I only used the 3 pumpkins and I used the back side. I did not paint it first because I wanted the darker to show through. I Mod Podged the tissue paper right on and then sanded around the edges. I wrapped each of the stems with nautical rope and hot glued them to secure them in place. I had these little wood words from the Target dollar spot that said grateful and thankful, and then I used my orange Arteza paint marker to write the word blessed to try to match it. Originally, I used nautical rope and made them like a long hanging sign, and I decided then to take it off. So I'm basically rearranging them so that they're more of a cluster, and I'm hot gluing them together, and then I'm going to hang them once they are attached. And I used some clamps to make sure the glue dried, and then I just went ahead and reinforced the back with some more glue. And rather than wasting the nautical rope that I already had, I decided to reuse it, and nobody would ever see the part that was ripped off from the hot glue, so I figured it would just be on the back side. And I just went ahead and hot glued it to the back accordingly so that I would have a nice little hanger. Seriously though, I love these. They're a little glam, they're a little modern farmhouse, and they're so cute. Oh my gosh. And I use the Dollar Tree wreath form. I think it's the largest one they have. And I've got some flowers from Dollar Tree as well as some floral tape. And I'm using my little wire cutters to cut off a couple of the circles. I think there were 4 circles on this wreath, and I only wanted 2 for this particular wreath. I love these wreath forms because you can make up to 4, I think, wreaths out of them if you only used a single circle. And then I'm going to take some rope that I believe I got from Walmart, and I'm going to just start wrapping it around. I'll use the hot glue to fix it to the first starting point. Then I'm going to kind of, not tightly, but just in little loops, go around and around and around until the whole entire wreath is filled up with the rope. And it's going to create a really pretty design, and not like just little lines going around, but more of a loopy kind of a look. And it just kind of makes it feel more full. And you can see what I'm doing. I'm just kind of, you know, going around, and then as I go around each time, I put the rope next to the rope that's already there, and that way you create this look. And I really, really like it. It takes a little bit longer, or maybe it takes the same. It just feels like it takes longer. And, you know, I'm going to speed this up, of course, so you don't have to watch the whole process. But I do like texture. If you watch my videos, if you know me, I try to add texture to everything. It just kind of makes it more visually interesting. And I'd like to mention, if you like my videos, if you enjoy watching these, definitely hit that like button. And if you're not subscribed, I would invite you to subscribe. It really helps my channel grow. And of course, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. I also have a Facebook page and an Instagram page under the same name as my channel. It would mean so much to me if you would visit those and go ahead and follow me there. That would be awesome. And now it's time for me to just glue that last little piece down now that it's over, and I'll just cut off the end. And now you can see the kind of pattern that it shows you. It's a little more visually appealing, I think. I really liked it. I love that you can wrap your wreath any way you want, and that's the beauty of doing these kind of crafts. You get to add your own flair. And now I'm just going to take the flowers that I got from Dollar Tree. I'm going to cut them off of the pick so I can place them how I'd like. I've also got some off-white berries. And what I'm going to do is just a side wreath. So I'm only going to put the greenery and the flowers and so forth on the side. It will be on the left side visually when it's hanging up. So I'm figuring out what I want going upward and what I want going downward, and that's what I'm arranging right now. Another thing is that you don't have to make everything symmetrical unless that's what you want to do. And again, this all comes down to your style and your taste and what looks good in your home, or what just feels good creatively. I tend to process things as I go. I don't always have a plan. I just like the colors and I start playing with it. So you'll see me start off with things and then add other things, and I may not know what all my supplies are going to be when I first start, because I like to flow in the creativity, and that's just the way I work best. Now that I decided what I want to be together on each side of that wreath, I'm using the floral tape to put those pieces together around the stem. It'll just make it a little bit easier to attach. And this isn't the kind of wreath where I'm going to shove that much on the inside, so that's another reason I wanted to use the floral tape. If it was a grapevine wreath, this would be different. I'd just be stuffing everything inside of the grapevine, and this one's just a little bit different than that. Anytime you have a narrower wreath, then you have to kind of camouflage some of those extra stems and find a way to make that look visually appealing. So now I have attached one side, and I did put a little bit into the rope, but not a lot will fit, and so I'm trying to get as much as I can so that you can't see it. Here it is placed, one above, one below, and I'm going to start working on a bow. And I found this really cool burlap ribbon with some lace going down the middle at Dollar Tree, so I bought some, and I'm going to cut some sections because I want to have a bunch of different loops, and I'm going to end up tying it around the middle, but it didn't really bunch up nice, so I kind of cut the middle like with little V's like that, and then I tied the rope around. It's actually just twine, and then I could turn it over and then arrange those little bows. I can just kind of, there's wire in there, so I can kind of move them around, and that's how that looks. I also cut a tail so that that would hang down and just cut the edges. And I did decide to tie that through the center around the wreath. And here's the finished product. I actually have it hanging over a project I did a couple months ago where I put a bunch of picture frames together and made a wall hanging of a mirror. It looks kind of like a window, and I'll put the link to that video in the description below. And just a couple different angles so you can see how it looks from the side as you're coming up to it. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. I love the color. I love it's sort of subtle. It's not overpowering, but it's got fall in it, and it's just really, really sweet. Not really into orange pumpkins too much, but I found these 3 orange styrofoam pumpkins at the Dollar Tree. And I used a little sharp blade to cut around the top. You see there's a circle there, so it made it very easy, and they're hollow. So you just cut around that line that's already there for the circle and take the lids off with the little stem. And then I used 3 different colors of paint by Waverly: plaster, celery, and mineral. I wanted to use neutral colors since I was going to glam them up. Here they are, all painted, and they look so much better than when they were orange, at least in my opinion. Of course, if you decide to try this, you can do them in any color that you like. It took a good 2 coats to really cover that orange completely. For the pumpkin that I painted plaster, I used these adhesive fake diamonds from the Dollar Tree, and I cut them into strips, and they just adhered right on there. You don't have to use glue or anything. I calculated how many strips I needed for each of the indentations on the pumpkin. This was the only pumpkin I was going to use the top. I had 3 pumpkins, and I took 2 of the stems to create one big stem for the one pumpkin. I used the Folklore metallic paint in sterling silver to paint the lid and the stems that I put together, and that kept with the glam look. And then I placed them on top, and I used some more of those little fake diamond adhesives and did a couple rows around the stem, and there it is. I love this pumpkin. It's so cute. For the next glam pumpkin, this is the one that I painted mineral. I'm going to use some succulents and moss balls that I got at the Dollar Tree. In order to cover the opening a little bit, I'm going to glue with hot glue the moss balls all the way around so there's only a little hole left in the center. I chose 3 different succulents and I placed them in the center until I thought they looked good, and then I attached them with hot glue as well. I love this one. It kind of has a boho feel to it. The final pumpkin that I painted in celery, I decided to use my Folklore gold paint, it's metallic, to do a chevron pattern all the way around. I took some really pretty white florals and some greenery and put them inside, and I just love how it turned out. I love these pumpkins so much, and I want to keep them up till after Thanksgiving. So I came up with an idea. I found these little letters at the Target little dollar section when you first walk in the door, and they had the words grateful and thankful, which I painted with the silver metallic Folklore paint, and I attached them to 2 of the pumpkins using just a couple drops of hot glue, and they're just perfect. They're just like my new favorite thing ever. I love them so much. The first thing that you will need is a small 5x7 canvas from the Dollar Tree, the kind that is wrapped on the little wood frame. And then I used some letter stickers in gold, and I put some painter's tape across to line up my words, and I put the words pumpkin time. Now I'm going to leave those there while I paint over the top. And I decided to do kind of a blending technique where I did a little bit of turquoise and green across the top. Then I got a little pumpkin from Dollar Tree, the kind that comes in a set of 3, and I cut it in half with my blade. And then what I'm going to do eventually is put it on top of this. But first, I am going to remove those letters, and this is what I have left. So it's almost like a reverse stenciling. And then I painted the little pumpkin in white. And I wanted to put a little bit of the burlap ribbon across the edge, and I glued it to the back. Very simple. And then I thought, needs a little more texture still, so I put a little bit of jute twine in the indentations. And there you have it. Talk about adorable and easy. I love this little sign. It's super boho, and if you don't want traditional orange for pumpkins, here's a nice way to spice up your living area if you're a person who loves the boho decor style, like I do. Now this is one of those kind of garland wrapped pumpkins in bright orange and shimmery green, and I just ripped that stuff off there. I just do not like it. Now I'm going to say I didn't just rip it off there because it was hard to get off. But if you take a scissors and you start cutting, there's little wires wrapped around each of those notches that you see, and I have this sped up in 20 times speed just to show you how long this actually took me. I will tell you right now, that was the most difficult part of this DIY, and it's not difficult, it's just time consuming. So I ripped and ripped and ripped, kept using my scissors, made a humongous mess, and then got that off there. If you enjoy videos like this, please be sure to hit that like button and definitely subscribe to my channel and turn the notification bell on so that you'll be notified when my next video uploads, and you can be one of the first people to see it. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let me know what you think, what you would do different, other ideas, things you'd love to see. I just wanted to let you guys know if you do those things, it really helps my channel grow. And also follow me on Instagram and Facebook. It's under the same name as my channel, Living My Best Life with Lisa Marie. I'd love to see you over there. I'm still working on that pumpkin, can you believe? Eventually I do get it all off. The fastest and easiest way I found to clean it is to use my little desktop ladybug vacuum. I got it off Amazon. If anyone's interested, I can put a link in the description. I love this little thing. It works so well. Now I've got just the skeleton, if you will, of the pumpkin, and I decided I would use a little, I don't know what those are called exactly, kind of like wire cutters, I guess, to cut off all those little knobs where the wires were wrapped around. So I've also sped this up, and you just got to get them at the right angle or else it leaves a little teeny piece and then you just go back in it from the opposite side. So I took all of those off and took just a few minutes to do that, no big deal. And once I got them off, I had another mess to clean up. And now here you'll see I'm just going back and getting some of those little edges that didn't come off the first time. And then they're just teeny little pieces left that I just clipped right off. Now I'm going to take this rug from Dollar Tree, and I want to take it apart so I can get those little strands out of it, and just use the little teeny scissors. And it's sewn together with like fishing wire, so it comes apart really easily. And I was looking at that thinking you can make a cool wall hanging. In the meantime, I went and took them off of the rug, detached them, and put them in little stacks of the same color. And then I grabbed some twine. Now at this point, I decided to also take out all the little pieces that go across horizontally, and I only left the vertical frame of the pumpkin. And I chose some colors and I started wrapping around. Started with hot glue and then wrapped all the way to the bottom and hot glued the end. And I'm doing each of those little skeleton pieces of the pumpkin. And then I thought, oh, how funny. I said skeleton pieces of the pumpkin, like Halloween, get it? Okay, anyway, I thought that was funny. And on the stem, I used some nautical rope. And I thought that's not enough, so I took some of the burlap Dollar Tree leaves, and I mixed a paint color using these 3 paints, and I painted both sides of 2 leaves. I wanted to stay very neutral, so it could still fit that boho vibe. And then I took a little of Waverly's Antique Wax and distressed it a little bit, and then I glued them end to end on the very top of the pumpkin. And there you can see. Then I got some raffia, which is really the hula skirt from Dollar Tree, and grabbed several strands and tied a little bow and hot glued it to the top, and that's it. I really think it came out cute. It's so simple. You can hang it on the wall, you can lean it up against something. It's just adorable, and it's not overpowering. It'll fit with neutral decors, and you can actually use any color you want to wrap, and I just really, really loved it. I picked these cute little scrapbook paper with stencil sets at the Target dollar spot, or is it the one spot? I always forget. Anyway, I think they were $3 each. Super cute, tons of different patterns, and then the stencils were very like kind of fall Thanksgiving. So I went ahead and I traced on different pieces of the scrapbook paper the different shapes. And then I cut them out and I Mod Podged them to this cardboard, which is just me recycling a box of something that was delivered to me. If you've been watching my channel for any amount of time, you'll notice that I do like to recycle things and use things that I already have because it's free and it's good for the environment and it saves money. Hey, just curious, are you subscribed to my channel? Because if you're not, please consider doing it. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you'll know whenever I upload a new video. And the little black roly thing that I'm using is called a brayer. I got it on Amazon. And it just helps to flatten out something and make sure there's no bubbles or wrinkles. And oftentimes you'll see me use saran wrap over the actual piece when I'm doing it, especially if it's already wet or if it's like tissue paper or napkin, because that way it won't stick. Now I folded my scrapbook paper to cut out the leaves because that way I could cut more than one at a time. And now I'm just going to cover all the little cutouts with Mod Podge and let that dry before I cut them out of the cardboard. I got one of these little pumpkin wooden containers from Dollar Tree, and I just pulled off the front and the back, and I'm going to use the solid piece and I'll save the other one for another DIY sometime. And I'm going to go ahead and sand the edges and then do the same thing, pick some scrapbook paper, and then I'm going to Mod Podge it to the wooden piece and cut around the edges, and then go ahead and put Mod Podge on the surface of that one as well. Did you guys know that I'm also on social media on Facebook and Instagram as Living My Best Life with Lisa Marie, and I hope you will follow me there. I do sneak peeks and other types of things, and it would be great to connect with you there. I have two of these little crate boxes from Dollar Tree, and I am going to glue them together using a combination of E6000 and hot glue, and that way I can start working right now even though the E6000 won't quite be dry yet. And so once I get those fixed to one another and in place and let the hot glue dry, then I'm going to paint them. I used the Waverly chalk paint in the color Hazelnut to paint this. Once I finished painting the planter box, I took all the little shapes that I had put the scrapbook paper on. I went ahead and I hot glued them to the front of one of the sides, and that's going to be the face of this little planter box. If you didn't already figure out, that's what it's going to be. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm arranging them, putting the leaves in different places, and the pumpkin, and there's a little apple pie with a piece of pie and a turkey. Oh, they're so cute. I am just loving this so much. It's just so cute and whimsy. And I did decide to go ahead and distress it and do some dry brushing. So putting a little bit of the antique wax from Waverly on my brush, wiping most of it off, and then kind of dry brushing around the edges. And then I decided I think the whole thing needs to be fully distressed. So I started doing all of the wood as well. And I honestly really do like it. I could have stopped and just left it the way it was, but I was looking for that, you know, a little bit more aged look and worn. And then the back back of the pumpkin, instead of leaving it natural wood, I also painted it with the antique color. I also decided that the word thankful got too faded, so I took out my plaster chalk paint from Waverly, and I went over the word thankful just so that would pop again, and that really came out nice. In the spirit of using things that I already had that were free, I had some foam from a box that was packed in it, so I cut it to fit inside each of the little crate boxes, and then I pulled out some of my florals that I had from Dollar Tree, some of the fall leaves, the sunflowers, and eucalyptus, and I snipped them and arranged them until I got it to look just the way I wanted. And I added the eucalyptus because I wanted to tone down some of the bright colors. I love those fall bright colors, but I also didn't want it to be so overpowering because I had distressed the box, and that really would have looked funny. So I think this kind of balanced it out quite a bit. And here is the finished piece. You guys, I really love this. Oh my gosh. First I was a little nervous about all the distressing I did, but I have to say, I really love it. Let me know what you think in the comments. For this DIY, you'll need one of those plain Happy Thanksgiving pumpkin signs from Dollar Tree, some Waverly chalk paint in ink, and some Folklore metallic silver and also in white chalk paint. First thing I'm going to do is I want to get rid of those glittery letters that say Thanksgiving on the faux metallic plank. So I sanded that off, and then I used my handy little ladybug vacuum to clean up my desktop. And I'll leave you the link for that in the description. It's from Amazon. Now I'm going to tape off that one plank that is in the faux metal because I want to get rid of that extra shine, and of course I sanded it. So I'm going to do the faux aged metallic look by putting some little drops of black and white and the metallic silver, and I'm just going to keep going over it and dabbing it very lightly, having very little on my brush the whole time until I get that look that I really want, and then it'll look like aged metal, and that's what I'm going for here, not the shiny. I'm going to cover that with a little bit of the matte Mod Podge to seal it so that I can write something on it later with my paint pens. Now I wanted to remove all of the other paper on the top because I didn't want to do that design, and I came up with this trick, not sure if it's original or not, but use a little bit of painter's tape over an edge. It starts peeling it right up, and that way it's even all the way across, and it worked so well. So if you didn't know that you could do that, now you do, and you have to spend all that time trying to peel it off. Next, I used the color Plaster in Waverly chalk paint as a primer, since I didn't have any, which I need to get some, to go ahead and paint the rest of those planks, including all the way to the top to the stem. And I'm just doing this to give it a nice light background for all the other colors that are going to go on it later. I'm going to try a technique that I saw on a channel called Chalk It Up Fancy, and they are excellent teachers over there, by the way, so I'll give them a shout out. And they put some kind of like a textured type of a fabric that had a little bit of, not holes, but gaps in the design, and they put it over wood planks, and then they kind of stippled over it. Now, I think that where I might have gone wrong on this, because I do go wrong, is this particular lace that I used might be too fine. I think I need something a little heavier and with a little bit of bigger gaps, so when I ripped it off, I was expecting to see more of the white. But I did get a really cool texture out of it, so live and learn. I decided to dry brush it with that plaster color, and that way it did give me what I was hoping for a little more. I'll try it again on another project and see if I can do it right the next time. And now I'm just using a little bit of the Waverly Antique Wax to create my stem, and also go through and just distress the edges of each plank a little bit with a dry brush technique, where you put a little bit on your brush, wipe most of it off, and then kind of drag it across the edges and over the middle, just subtly. And now I'm going in a little darker to create the stem. I'm going to seal the entire pumpkin with the matte Mod Podge so that I have a nice smooth surface, but not too shiny. This little metal leaf left over from a project I did in my last video, and it was a very shiny metal, so I did that faux aged metal technique on it so it would match the pumpkin. I used my hot glue to attach the leaf to the top by the stem, and then I made a little teeny raffia bow out of the Dollar Tree hula skirt to finish that part off. And the last thing I did is I got my Arteza paint pens out. I chose to use black. I decided to write pumpkin spice. Now I'm still trying to learn how to write in a kind of a pretty calligraphy way, which I am obviously still working on, but I'm a huge pumpkin spice fan. I've been drinking the creamer in my coffee every morning, so I thought that would be a lot of fun to have something that said that. Are you a pumpkin spice fan? I've noticed people either are or they're not, so let me know in the comments which one are you. And that finishes off this project. And I have to tell you, I really love it. It's so cute. And I love the little hanging planks. We are going to do another one of the splatter screen pumpkins. This time I'm going to use that lace that I used earlier on the first pumpkin. So I'm going to follow the same steps, cut out the circle, but this time I thought it might be easier to just glue the piece on and then cut around it once it was attached. And I was right. It definitely was easier to do it this way. I was going for more of a farmhouse look on this one, so I used some beads that I purchased from Amazon. You get quite a few, a lot of different sizes, very reasonable price. I'll try to leave the link in the description for you. And I watered down some of that pumpkin Waverly paint, and I put the beads on a skewer stick from Dollar Tree, which makes it a lot easier to paint them. And I went ahead and I painted them with that watered down paint. I started off with about 32 in each of the colors I'm going to use, and I did end up having to paint a few more just to finish the outline of the pumpkin. Then I did some in the plaster color to create the lines on the pumpkin like I had done with the robe on the previous one. The next step is I assembled the pumpkin out of the two splatter screens like I did before, and I hot glued them together, and then I'm going to take those cute little beads that I painted and I'm going to hot glue them all the way around the edges to create that outline of the pumpkin. I just wanted to take this time to remind you guys that I am on Instagram and Facebook, and you can find me there under Living My Best Life with Lisa Marie, and I'd love to see you there. It's easier to chat and it would be super fun, plus you might get a sneak peek of what's coming. I'd also like to thank you so much for watching my videos and supporting me and encouraging me. You guys are really the best community of best lifers, and I appreciate everything you do. In keeping with that farmhouse theme, I'm going to lightly dry brush the antique Waverly wax onto all of the beads and then wipe a little bit of it off just to give it a little bit of an aged look. And I think it really looks great like this. And then I actually go back again with that orange paint and the plaster paint because I go back and forth till I get the color I like. And that's the thing, you can go back and forth until it looks exactly the way you want. There's no right or wrong way to do this. For this pumpkin stem, I'm going to use some of the jute twine, which is a lot smaller, and I'm going to wrap it all the way around the handle and hot glue it. I'm going to add a few more of those leaves from Dollar Tree, and also a little raffia bow, again out of the hula skirt. I had picked up one of those little thankful signs with a light in it from Dollar Tree, and very easily the words come right off the front of it, and I went ahead and painted it with the watered down pumpkin paint, and then I also dry brushed that and hot glued it to the center, and that finished off this project. I love how this came out. Oh my gosh, it's so cute. Is so simple and something that you can do for free if you have these things around your house. I used the insert of a toilet paper roll. I had saved a bunch of them thinking I was going to use them for planting seeds. I cut them all the way through the long direction, and then I cut each one into 3 equal pieces. It takes about 6 pieces to make a small pumpkin, so that's 2 toilet paper rolls. If you want to make a larger pumpkin, I would just do twice as many and extend the length by attaching them to each other. Using a dab of hot glue, I attach each of the ends together, creating kind of a star effect. Then one by one I attached the other ends to each other by folding them up over the top and making a kind of a circle or pumpkin looking shape. Now don't worry about what it looks like. You won't see any of this because the fabric is going to cover all of it. Next I went through my fabric stash and I found a bunch of fall kind of patterns and colors to use to cover my little pumpkin. I set the pumpkin shape in the middle and I started one middle section at a time, so I didn't start with the corners, and I hot glued them to the top. And I left the corners for last so I could pull them up and make kind of a little gathering look to it. And you'll see here each step of the way I've taken a picture. And it ends up covering the entire top when you're all done and you have some little gathers. And it starts to look like a little pumpkin shape covered in fabric. And then I use some jute twine to wrap around to kind of give those little indentations of the pumpkins. To create the stem, I got some burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree, the kind with the wires on the ends, and I rolled it up about 5-6 times and hot glued it to itself and created little stems to put on my pumpkins. And then I just hot glued it to the very top of each of the pumpkins. And I think they really turned out cute, super easy. Put them up on my coffee bar and a couple other places around the house. And I just think they add the really nice texture and color just to give a little variety of decor, but nothing too in your face, just kind of cute. I don't know, I really love them. Let me know what you think. I feel like they came out really cute and they were so easy to do. I've been seeing a lot of people make these Hello Pumpkin signs, and I just think they're so cute, so I wanted to try my hand at it as well. For this project, I used one of the little teeny palettes from the Dollar Tree, and I bought the little clip-on pumpkins that came 3 in a pack, and I'm just using actually a half of one of those. And then I found some cards that said hello and my Mod Podge and my Waverly wax paint in antique. Using a pointy little blade tool, I cut out the word hello. I decided on the positioning for how I was going to put that on the palette, and then I took off the little clip on the bottom of the pumpkin, and I also removed the stem from the top. It comes off really easy. And then I used my blade and I cut the pumpkin in half. I decided where I was going to end up attaching the pumpkin, and then I removed the sign in the pumpkin and I used my Waverly antique wax to go ahead and cover the entire little mini palette so that it would look, you know, like a nice piece of stained wood. I used the Mod Podge first on the palette, and then I put the sign hello on there, and then I got my metallic rose gold paint from Folklore and I painted the words hello. It took about 2 or 3 coats to really cover, and then I Mod Podged over the entire thing to seal it. I used my hot glue gun to attach the little pumpkin, and then with a brown Arteza paint pen I painted on a little stem. And then I took 4 of the tower tumbling blocks from Dollar Tree, and I decided to attach those to make a little stand. And then I took my black chalk paint, colored ink, and I went ahead and painted the top of those so that it would just give it a little more of a kind of a fall October-y look. I think it came out super cute. I wish that maybe the letters had been a teeny bit smaller so that the pumpkin wouldn't be so large on it. But honestly, up on top of my coffee bar there, it looks super cute and I really like it. I've got to learn how to do that lettering myself. It would be much easier than cutting it out. Again, I used one of those little mini palettes from the Dollar Tree. I used the Waverly chalk paint in ink color and mineral color, and also my Arteza paint pens in like the orange color. I can't remember the name of it, but it's really, really pretty. And I'm going to create another little sign with this. I went ahead and I painted the palette with the mineral color. And then I used my kind of stiff brush to do some distressing. I love that look with the black over the mineral color. And now I'm using the other half of that little pumpkin that I cut in half. And I'm going to distress that as well. I'm using this folk art sheepskin color. And then I also put a little mineral over it in each of the risen areas. And then I put a teeny bit of black and I use that paint pen just to give it some color. The fall represents harvest in my mind, so it's a time when farmers are reaping their harvest. And I think about the saying, seed time harvest. It's a biblical principle. And I think about in the fall, we are blessed because of that harvest. So that's what I put on the sign. I used a hot glue gun to attach my little half pumpkin to the bottom left corner of the sign. And then I felt like it still needed something. It was cute, but something was missing. So I found some little rub-on transfers of some greenery, and I decided to attach that. And then I felt like, okay, now I like this. This is good. And I really think it turned out cute. I'm pretty happy about it. And I finished it off with a top coat of the fast-drying polyacrylic sealer, just to give it a little shine and to protect it. I really love it, and I think that saying is just a good reminder. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so happy that you were here, and I can't wait to see you in my next video. I appreciate the time that you take to watch my videos. It means so much. And remember, you are a blessing to me.